How's it going, everyone? This is Robert. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to use Illuminate to identify your EL students and your SPED students. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through a quick way first, and that would be just if you go up to the top right-hand corner where you see this, what looks like a graph. Now that'll actually take you to your dashboard. So if you click on that and you look over to your left, you'll see demographic distribution. In this drop-down window, I already have special education. Okay, if you click on that, you can also find your English learners. So just using our special education, right? For me, it already identifies the number of SPED students that I have on my rosters. And so I have 12. So let's say that I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to highlight them on my roster on a hard copy. Then I would go ahead and just click on that and it'll pull up their names, and then I would go about my business and highlight their names on my roster. I would do the same thing with my English learners. See, now since I teach all ELD, it's 96% of my students are EL students, which is odd. This is interesting because I should have 100%, and it says here that I have 96.3%. So that tells me that, some students have been misplaced. So if I click on their names, these 3 students are not ELs. Now the possibility is that they are new to the district and just haven't been tested, or they're reclassified and somehow they were missed, right? They were placed in ELD by accident. And so that's the case with Maria Elena. I identified her as she actually reclassified. And so she's been dropped from my first period class. Jose and Martin are new to the district, and so we do not have any scores for them. So that's why they haven't been labeled as EL for the time being. And we won't know if they have to stay in ELD until they take the initial LPAC. But anyway, I digress. So if I wanted to go ahead and pull up their names of my EL students, I'll just click again, and there's all my EL students. I'll go onto my roster or my hard copy of my classroom list or attendance list, and I would go ahead and highlight or indicate who my EL students are. Now that's the quick way of pulling up that information. If you want another way of doing it, then you can go to reports, go to view reports. And since I've been, looking up English learner information or data, it's right here. But for most of us, we would just click here where it says type to start searching and type in English learners, and you would have the same information here pull up. We're going to go ahead and click on 2021, 2022 English learners. You click on that, and if you have ELs in your class, then you will have a list like this with all of your ELs. Now, this is valuable information for us because it tells us a couple of things. It tells us how long they've been in the ELD program, okay? And that in itself might kind of give you a glimpse into your students. So for instance, Charisse, she's only been in ELD for 4 years. So in all likelihood, she is not born here in the United States. In all likelihood, if I'm not mistaken, she was born in the Philippines. Jocelyn, on the other hand, he's been in the EL program for 12 years. He's at LTEL. And so in all likelihood, he was born in the United States. Okay. And so those are just little nuggets of information that you learn right away. But most important to us is we want to know, it would be good to know what EL level they're at, right? And so for instance, Alejandro, if I look over here, we have his LPAC score from last year's LPAC, and he scored a 4, which means that he is one of our higher performer, higher level EL students, right? In fact, Alejandro actually is scheduled to be reclassified because he met the criteria. So good for him. Then I have Leslie, who's my former student or was a student of mine last year as well. Last year, I don't know what happened with her on her LPAC test, but she scored a 1 overall, but I can tell you right now that she is not a beginner. So I don't know if she just didn't take the test serious or what happened, but I do know that she's been in the EL program for over 10 years. She's an LTEL, so something happened there. So she didn't try, or she just had, she's not good at testing. I'm not 100% sure, but this gives you some very good information, particularly their LPEC scores, which will come into play in a few minutes when I show you the following. So by now you should have already created your classroom, your class rosters, right? Or not the rosters, but excuse me, you should have already created your seating charts. If you haven't done so already, then perhaps I can make another tutorial on how to set that up. Or maybe if somebody else is willing to do so, then we could go ahead and upload a video showing how to create our seating charts. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move forward as if everybody already has their seating charts created. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this real quick. And so here's a copy of my seating chart from my first period. Now for mine, it's going to be a little bit different, right? Because I have all EL students, but let's assume, or let's just pretend that this is a traditional English class or what have you. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up with Cami. All right. All of us veteran teachers, or those of you that were at Edison or Stockton Unified last year, there was this big push to use Cami. And so for those of you that are brand new or unfamiliar with Cami, it's a extension that you could go ahead and download. And so it's free. So if you just go to the Google Chrome store, just go ahead and go to Google Chrome store, download, whatever. There you go, extensions. Then up here, just type Cami, K-A-M-I. And there you are. You're just going to click there, add, and then it will be show up here in your toolbar up here. Okay. So once you have that installed, then you're ready to go. So you're going to go ahead and go and open up with Cami, annotate with Cami. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because we want to have classroom rosters, or excuse me, classroom seating charts available for our substitutes. And so it'd be not only good for the substitute, but also for ourselves to know and identify who our ELs and who our SPED students are. And so there's a couple of tools that you can use to do so. I would maybe pick two different highlighter colors. So if you go to markup, this is where you would use pick colors for your highlighter, right? I would pick two different colors, one to identify my SPED and one to identify my EL students. And in the case of in those cases where you have ELs that are also SPED students, then you might want to use a combination of both colors or maybe a completely different color. That's really up to you. But it's pretty easy to use this highlighter tool. So I would just go ahead and click on markup. I would go down, right, and pick a color. So let's say, for example, I'm going to use blue to highlight my EL students. So I use blue. And then what I would go ahead and do is I would go and just, let's say Alexis here, he's one of my ELs. So I would just go ahead and start highlighting his name, SO, release, and now it's highlighted. Okay. Let's say I made a mistake and said like, oh, Alexis isn't an EL student. I just go ahead and hover over his name, right? You see the little window pop up. You could just go ahead and go over here, click on the garbage can, and it removes the highlighter. Okay. Now, let's say that Mauricio, he happens to be one of my SPED students. And so let's say for SPED, I'm going to use the color pink. Then I would just go down here. The window opens. I click on pink, go over to his name. Same thing, just highlight, release, and there we go. Okay. Now, somewhere on your somewhere on your seating chart, you probably want to create a little legend so that your substitute knows, what the kid's names highlighted in pink, what that stands for, and what the other color stands for. And so that's real easy to do. All you have to do is just go down here to text box, click on that, pick a color that's going to be the color of your text or whatever it is that you type. And so put it wherever you want. I would just maybe put it up here, and maybe I would type up, let's see, I don't know why this is popping up, but I'll type in legend, and I would put maybe pink, yells, yellow, or my SPED, oops. And there you go. And now I have my legend up here. Okay. And so now this corresponds with the highlighted colors. And that's just a little quick, little something note for your sub to understand what the highlighted colors mean. Now, if you wanted to get extra fancy, or you want to get more detailed, which I strongly advise, I would also include the LPAC scores for our ELs. And so hopefully you'll have those scores. You generated that list with the list of your ELs and their LPAC scores. I would just go ahead and I would have that, and I would go down the list. I would look over my roster, and again, I would go ahead and make a note, maybe right next to the student's picture, what their EL level is, or whatever other notes you want to leave for your substitute and for yourself. So for example, let's say that Mauricio is a level 3, and I want to indicate that. I would go to text box, click right next to his name, and then I might type in, right, EL level 3, something along those lines. And let's say, for example, I don't know, any other notes that I wanted to include, maybe something about discipline, keep him away from jostle, or don't partner him up, or whatever. You can make any other little notes that you want. But, I would say that the bare minimum, if you can provide for yourself, for the sub, their LPAC score, that'd be great, right? That'd be great. That'd be very helpful information, especially for yourself, just so that later on when you're doing grouping and group work, and you could be strategic with your pairing of students, or with the grouping of your students. This automatically saves, but I like to be safe, and so I like to just go over to where it says save up here, and just click on save now, just to assure that everything is saved and ready to go. But other than that, that's all that I have for today. So hopefully that was somewhat helpful. You can always reach out to me if you have any questions, or if you need further assistance with this. But there's also other valuable resources, other people in the ELA and ELD department that are very knowledgeable on how to use all these different platforms and how to navigate Illuminate and Synergy, such as Mr. Sabak, Mr. Carter, and others. Okay, those are just 2 names off the top of my head. So again, thank you very much. Good luck, and I will see you when I see you. Take care.